Hey there, I hope everyone is doing really well today. Recently, we did a live stream taking a look at Twingate, which I think is a really cool tool for secure remote access to your home network and self-hosted resources. Today, we're going to take another look at Twingate and show you how to use Twingate to access your home server and self-hosted services from anywhere securely. We'll talk about what Twingate is and cover how to set it up and real-world self-hosting use cases. There will also be a step-by-step guide and a demo along the way, and you'll see that it is a game changer compared to traditional VPNs and port forwarding. Now, quick side note here, just like the live stream, this video is sponsored by Twingate, so thanks to them for that. All right, so what exactly is Twingate? In a nutshell, it's a zero trust network access or ZTNA solution. This means it focuses on verifying every user and device before granting access to resources, rather than just opening up your entire network. Think of it as a super secure, granular way to control access to your network and the resources on it. So the magic happens with three main components. First, there's the controller, which is Twingate's cloud-hosted brain, and it manages users, devices, and access policies. Then you have the connector, which is an app that you install on your home server or device on your network, and this acts as a secure gateway to your internal resources. Finally, you have the client, which is an app that you put on your cell phone, tablet, laptop, or whatever to connect to your network and resources. When you want to access a service, your client talks to the controller, which then establishes a secure encrypted connection through the connector to a specific resource that you need. And here's the key. This doesn't expose any open ports to the public internet. Now, this approach is fundamentally different from traditional VPNs. With Twingate, you're not just giving someone access to your entire network unless you really want to. You're only granting them access to the specific services that they need, and this significantly reduces the attack surface and makes your home network much more secure. Now, let's talk about why Twingate is so valuable for self-hosting enthusiasts. If you're running a home server, you probably have a bunch of services that you want access to remotely without them necessarily being publicly available. For example, if you're using Plex or Jellyfin to stream your media library, Twingate lets you access it securely from anywhere without having to expose your server to the open internet. And unlike some companies who explicitly forbid media servers from running through their services, Twingate actually has a blog post talking about how to remotely access your Plex server via Twingate. Now, there's a good chance that you're using Proxmox or Unraid or TrueNAS or maybe something else entirely for your home lab. Twingate allows you to securely monitor and control your setup super easily because no matter where you are, you can access your services, containers, LXCs, or whatever via the same IP addresses that you use when you're at home. Or if you're into home automation and use something like Home Assistant, Twingate lets you access your Home Assistant dashboard securely without any remote configuration in Home Assistant. And for those of you with a network-attached storage system, Twingate allows for secure file access and management. I could probably keep going, but the point is, Twingate eliminates the need for risky port forwarding or complicated VPN setups, making remote access to your self-hosted services simple and secure. Creating an account on Twingate is easy. Just head over to twingate.com, click sign in at the top of the page, and on the next page, you'll click create a new Twingate network. Then you'll enter your email address and click the box indicating if you'll use this at home or work. Then you'll click get started and then select the options for your use case. Let them know how you heard about them and then click continue. Next, you'll give your network a name, and this name will be part of your network URL, so keep that in mind. Then click Go to your network. Then you'll be asked to log in, and once you've signed in, you'll go through a setup process where you'll start by creating your first resource. I just selected an entire subnet, but you can select what makes sense for you, and you can always change your mind later if you need to change or delete this specific resource. Next, you'll deploy a connector on your network. Now, I'm using Docker, but there are several options you can use to deploy your connectors. For security reasons, you will be prompted to log in again to start this process. Once you're signed back in, you'll generate your security tokens, select the appropriate options as necessary, and then deploy your connector. The connector will take a moment to deploy, but when it connects, the Twingate page will reload, and then you can download the apps for your phone, tablet, or computer, and then start configuring your remote access. So at this point, we've created our account, we've created a network, and we've deployed a connector. Having done all of that has brought us to this dashboard. dashboard. And by default, we're going to land on the network overview page. This is just where we land when we log in. And from here, we can see our network name and URL, which is right there. Below that in the left column, there are next steps, which includes downloading Twingate. Again, that will put the Twingate app on our phone or tablet or laptop or whatever. We're going to come back to that later though. Below that, we can create more resources, which is definitely something we'll want to do, and we can deploy another connector. Now, the cool thing about having multiple connectors set up like they suggest that you do is that, let's say, one of your pieces of hardware goes offline, that won't prevent you from still connecting to your network. It's kind of a backup or a fail-safe. This is similar to having, say, 2 instances of Pi-hole or AdGuard Home on your network. If one of those goes down, your whole network goes down. Whereas if you've got a backup, everything just kind of keeps running while you're getting the other instance back up and running. This is a very similar concept to that. So it's always a good idea to have 2 instances of your connector up and running. And we can do that by coming over here to the end of this line where it says connectors. And here we can see that Resilient Dinosaur is the connector that's connected. It's got the little green dot next to it versus the slash through it. We can see that which network it is connected to, which version, and what its status is. If we wanted to add that extra redundancy to this, we could click on whatever our next connector name is. These are all random. We can click that and go through that same setup process that we went through earlier. And we don't have to use the same method for each connector. We can switch this up as necessary, and I actually really like that. In our case, we might click Docker, go through the process of generating tokens and re-authenticating, setting whether or not we want any of these additional options available, and then running this command like we did earlier in the video. Now, for the sake of this tutorial, we're not going to set up the redundancy, but in a production environment, I encourage you to do that just so you've got that extra little bit of peace of mind in case one thing goes down, the other will take over and keep you connected at all times. But with that said, let's jump back to our dashboard. So now that we're back on our dashboard, we're taking a look here at the Overview tab. That's where we've been. We've also got Resources, Remote Networks, and Connectors. Now we're going to start on the connector side because, well, we already did that. We've taken a look at this. We've talked about that. So let's skip that and go to Remote Networks. Now this is the network that we created when we created our account. We can see the name, how many connectors are connected, how many resources, which by default is 1. It automatically created a resource when it built the network. We can see the location as other, and from here we can also delete our network. If we wanted to, from here we can also create a new remote network. So that's an option as well. But if we click My First Remote Network here, we can get a bit more information about what's available here, including creating resources. We can edit, we can again delete, we can see our connectors, we can kind of see all of the stuff that we saw on the previous page. So let's go back to our previous page here, which is where we just were, and click on Resources. Now, by default, when we set up our account, it built this resource, which again was just giving our first team, our default team, access to absolutely everything. And if we click on things like Manage Access, we can see everyone who would have access to this. In this case, the Everyone group or the Everyone team, but we can add teams later. We can also click on Edit. We can edit things here as far as the name of the resource, the access that's given to that resource via aliases and ports. We can restrict port access. We'll talk about this later. But that's kind of the default resource, and I don't want to go into too much more detail about resources until we've taken a look at some of these other tabs. So let's go ahead and then take a look at some of those other tabs, starting with the Team tab. So here we are on the Team page, and by default, it drops us onto the Users tab. We've also got Groups and Services, but just taking a look at the Users tab here, we can see that we have one user. We can see their username or their name, their email address, their role, status, devices, groups, or we can edit this. Because it's the only user, we can't delete it, disable it, do anything like that. That would bork our entire account, so we're not going to do that. If we want to add a new user, we can click Add User, and then we can put in an email address for this. And just like that, I can click Send Invite, and now I've been invited to this. And now I'll have received an email that we'll go ahead and take a look at now, just so we can get this account created and added to our teams. So this is the email that I received, and it says DB Tech invited you you to the DBTech Video Network. Download Twingate and enter your network name. Network and organization name is DBTech Video. And from here, I can click on Download Twingate. Now, because this computer is on my home network, it's not going to be a good example. So what I'm going to do is actually do this on my phone, just so that I can disconnect from the network and show that how this really works. So I'll open Twingate. I will put in my network name, which is DBTech Video, and then I'll click Join Network. I'll click Sign In to connect, and then I'll sign in with the appropriate Google account. So I'll click Sign In. And sometimes it makes us sign in multiple times. I'm not sure why. We're going to sign in again, and there we go. So now here we are just a moment later, attached to our network via my cell phone. Again, it'll be easier to demonstrate this on a cell phone not attached to my network later on. So now that I've gone through that process of adding my account to my phone, I should be able to come back to here and refresh. And it says status enabled, role member. There we go. That's how easy it is to add a user to our account. And we can do that for up to 5 users on the free account. So now that we've got a couple of users to play with here, let's go ahead and take a look at groups, and we'll assign different users to different groups, right? So let's click groups. Here we can see everyone. This is the group that everyone gets dropped into by default. So if we click everyone, we can see that it's got access to this resource that was created when we set up our account. Now, this resource is my entire network, and I don't want to do that. I'm actually going to remove access to that. Cool. So now that resource was removed from this group. I don't want everyone to have access to anything, really. I want to make sure that I have people assigned to groups that can do different things. So this resource, or sorry, this group doesn't have access to anything, and that's for security reasons. What I'm going to do is come back to here, to the groups page, and I'm going to create a new group. I'm going to call this group Plex, right? And then I'm going to open this, and I'm going to edit the group. Oops, I'm going to, let's see, add users to the group, and let's just give that account access to Plex. Now, we don't have any resources set up here, so let's go ahead and do that too. What we'll do is we'll click on plus resource right here, and we don't have, we've just got the one, and we don't necessarily want that. So let's go back to our network and create a resource. We'll click on network and go to resources, and then we'll click plus resource. We're going to call this Plex. I'm going to give it the IP address of my Plex server, which is 192.168.0.69. And then we're going to say, we're going to click on ports right here. Now, by default, it gives access to all ports, both on TCP and UDP by default. And I don't want that. I want custom ports. So I'm going to put in 32400. I'm going to block UDP for that. And we don't want ICMP enabled. That will allow it to respond if somebody pings it. So we're just going to block that. It probably does other things as well. But for right now, this is what we're going to do. We're going to click on create resource. Cool. So now that we've created that resource, it's saying, hey, which groups, which teams do you want to have access to this resource? I just want the Plex group or team to have access to this resource. We're going to say grant access. And there we go. So now we can see if we open this up, access is only to Plex here. We can change that by just clicking manage access. We can edit things. We can edit the policy here, or we can disable or delete it as necessary. Now, one of the other cool things that we can do is maybe we just want to give somebody access for a day, a week, a month, 2 months, or 3 months. That's also enabled with this auto lock policy here. So I picked up my phone after making those changes and noticed that it actually updated everything in real time. So now I only have access to the Plex stuff that I gave myself access to on this particular account. Now, one of the things that we'll notice is I am connected to Wi-Fi, and that's not going to really showcase what we have the opportunity to do here. So what I'm going to do is scroll down, and I'm going to disable my Wi-Fi. And here we should still be connected to everything. So what I want to do is click Plex, and it says, hey, this auth expires in 5 days. You can adjust that later if you need to. We can add to favorites, we can renew our session, we can open in browser, or we can copy the original address. Well, let's click open or copy original address. We're going to open a new tab. I'm going to paste that in there. Now, what it didn't do for some reason is actually tack on the port for that we're going to need. So luckily, I've already got that from some other testing that I've done in the past. So I'm going to go ahead and just click there. I'm going to click continue. And there's Plex. Notice that I'm not on my Wi-Fi, right? This is just on a cellular connection. So if I click my account, here we can see all of the stuff available on my Plex server. Again, I'm not connected via Wi-Fi. You can see that at the top of my screen there. So let's try something else. Let's come back to our URL there. And I'm going to change this. Now, I've also got Portainer set up on this instance. This is a Docker instance. I've got Plex and Portainer installed on here. But remember, I only gave myself access to Plex here. So if I put in this IP address with the HTTPS and the port and all of that and click go, it's not going to go. It's not going to give us access to that, which I absolutely love. So let's show in real time how we can actually make this work. Let's go back over to my desktop. There we go. We're going to add access. Oops, nope. We're going to come over here to network. We're going to go to resources. We're going to add a resource. We're going to call this Portainer 68.0.69. And then our port here, we're going to say custom. We're going to say 9443. We're going to block everything else just like we did before, and we're going to create that resource. And we're going to say Plex users can have access to that just like so. And then we're going to go back to my phone here, and we can see this failed. So I'm going to go ahead and open that back up. Just like that, I tapped that URL again. I'm going to say advanced. I'm going to say proceed. And just that quickly and easily, we got access to Portainer just by adding the additional port to the privileges that Plex group has. It's really just that easy to add resources to our setup, to add users and groups and give access to different resources based on the credentials or the services that they need access to. It's really, really just that simple. Now, we've taken a look at users and groups under the team tab here, but there's also services. And if we click on services, add a service account to set up access controls for automated processes. So kind of think of this like API keys if you need remote access for a service that doesn't have a traditional login like we just saw on my phone. If we want more information, of course, we can click on Learn More and get more information about how to integrate this into an app or a service or something that we might be working with. That is outside the scope of this video, but just know that that is an option if you need it. So now that we've taken a look at the Team tab, let's move on to devices. Here we can see there's just one device in here. That is the mobile phone we were just taking a look at there. And here we can see at a quick glance, David's Android mobile phone. It's connected. The owner is me. The client version is this. For security, it has biometric, HD encryption, and screen lock enabled. And it just knows that because that's what it needs to know. If we click on this, we can get more information. Again, we can see a lot of the same information. We can see that it's connected. We can see all the security stuff we saw a moment ago. We can archive or block a device if we need to do that. Or we can click verify. We don't have a serial number. So what we would need to do is get the serial number off of our phone and verify the device if we wanted to go that route. Again, this is for testing purposes, but just know that you can be very, very granular about the devices that you allow on your network. So next we've got policies, and policies are where kind of a lot of the extra security granularity comes into play. For instance, when we go to policies, we land on resource policies here, and the default resource policy is this. It allows for any device to re-authenticate every 5 days, and multi-factor authentication is not required. You could modify this to say only trusted devices, or you could customize the default policy however you want to do that. But what I want to do is actually come back and I want to create a new policy. We're going to call this no Android. Oops, if I could spell. Yeah, no Android. We're going to click create. So let's go ahead now and click on no Android. And let's say, let's manage our device security here. Now, this is where we can say, do I want Windows enabled, yes or no? Do I want Mac OS enabled, yes or no? Linux, iOS, or Android? I'm just going to say, nope, no Android. Don't trust Android for whatever reason we happen to have here. So now we've created this little additional thing here for the policy. We can come back over to our network. We can go to our resources. We can say Portainer. And then we can say default policy of no Android. So now that we've created this Portainer policy of no Android, what I should be able to do, or in this case not be able to do, is access Portainer on my Android phone. Here we can see that it's spinning, it's thinking, it's trying, but nothing is happening. However, if I come back to Plex, hey look, Plex still works. Let's come up here, let's click that. Plex still works just fine. But because we told our policy not to allow Android phones to access our Portainer instance, that's exactly what it did. Okay, so that was just one demonstration of what we can do with device profiles. But let's let Android back on there. We're going to unblock them. But let's say we want to make sure that people using Android devices are being more secure. Maybe we need them to have a screen lock and biometric enabled on this. We can click confirm, and any Android device that doesn't have a screen lock or biometrics enabled on their device won't be able to access any of the resources we have assigned to this policy and those resources connected. I think that makes sense. So if they have screen lock but not biometric, won't work. If they have biometric but not screen lock, won't work. They're going to need to have all of the prerequisite requirements on any of the devices that we set those prerequisites for, whether that's screen lock, biometrics, firewalls, whatever the case happens to be, over here on our policies, our device policies page. And we can be granular about what's required on each type of device, hardware or software. So now let's real quickly take a look at sign-in policies here. We have to meet the device security requirements. That's good. We definitely want that. We have to authenticate every 30 days. We can change this to require authentication at least once every, in this case, 30 days by default. And do you want to have multi-factor authentication enabled? Yes or no. You can require that. And users will be required to authenticate with a second method like TOTP, biometrics, or a security key if you want to go that route. So again, you can be very, very granular and very, very secure about who or what you let on your network with Twingate. And I absolutely love how much time and effort has gone into their thought process behind this. And again, all of this is available on their free tier. So jumping over to the Internet Security tab here, the first thing we're going to see is Secure DNS, which is DNS over HTTPS. There's more information here, and of course you can read the Secure DNS guide by clicking there. If you want to enable this, you can click Enable Secure DNS, and you can select from Cloudflare, Google, OpenDNS, NextDNS, or even a custom server if you have one of those available, and that's all available on the free tier. However, if you want to use Twingate DNS filtering, you will need to upgrade your account. But with just a couple of clicks, you can have DNS over HTTPS for an extra layer of security. So the next tab we've got under Internet Security is Client Configuration that allows for Internet Security Client Configuration setup here. It says enforce a persistent connection to secure DNS features even when your users aren't signed into Twingate. To enable this, generate a machine key and distribute it via your MDM. There's more information here, but you can click there and generate the machine key that's necessary for this. Now, this is outside the scope of what I want to cover in this video. Just know that it's definitely something that you can implement if you want or need to. So then under settings, we've got general, which is our network, our admin console authentication, which is 1 hour, and MFA not required. Should probably fix that. We've also got billing. We can see what this looks like as far as different plans, whether that's yearly or monthly, completely up to you, and maybe not even necessary for your setup. The free tier really does have a lot of really, really good stuff in it. We've got identity providers that we can connect to, whether it's Okta, Google Workspace, Intra, OneLogin, or JumpCloud. You can use any of those as an identity provider for your setup. We've got device integrations for CrowdStrike, Intune, Jamf. I'm not familiar with that one, or Kanji or SentinelOne, 1Password, you can also integrate with those. We can have access requests, which is email notifications are enabled, or we can configure webhooks if we want to go that route. We've got reports here. We can generate an audit log report if we want to go that route. And then we've also got API keys if we want to generate that for anything that we may want to connect to Twingate outside of what we've already connected to Twingate. So we've managed to set all of this up quickly and without a lot of complex configuration. And that's because Twingate is designed with security and ease of use in mind. It's much simpler to set up than a VPN, doesn't expose your entire network, again, unless you want it to, and doesn't require any port forwarding. Twingate also has excellent documentation and support resources. If you run into any issues, you can check out their website or their subreddit. And Twingate also has a weekly office hours workshop where you can chat with Twingate experts to help you get the most out of your deployment. So there you have it. Twingate is a powerful and secure remote access solution that's perfect for self-hosting enthusiasts. With its zero trust approach, granular access control, and seamless client experience, Twingate offers a modern and secure way to access your home network from anywhere. Whether you're managing your home lab, streaming your media, or accessing your home automation system, Twingate makes it easy and safe. So with that said, if you want to learn more, check out the links in the description down below. And if you found the video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. I want to thank you for watching, and I want to thank Twingate for sponsoring this video, and I'll chat with you next time.